Lindsey Graham has been a senator at this point for more than 2 decades. And I and a lot of other people think that's probably long enough. Maybe we can send him off that old dusty trail. And joining us is a candidate who wants to take out Lindsey Graham, a candidate we talked about on the show a couple of weeks ago when our first ad came out. Dr. Annie Andrews joins us now. Dr. Andrews, thank you for being with us on the Damage Report.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
We're glad to have you here. As I alluded to, you came out with your first ad, which was it was serious in terms of the issues it talked about, but it was also lighthearted in some places, and you used a little bit of fun language in terms of what you think about Lindsey Graham. Talk to me a little bit about the strategy in that being your first ad. Is that how your campaign is going to sort of be tonally situated? Tell us about that.
Yes, absolutely. You know, I'm not a career politician, never taken a political science class. I don't sound like regular politicians because I am not one. I'm a mom of 3 and a pediatrician. And for folks who have followed me previously on social media, they'll know that I like to use my sense of humor to poke fun at the ridiculousness of primarily our women Republican politicians. But we're in such a serious moment in this country, but that's no reason that we can't bring some levity to these issues. And, you know, Lindsey Graham is a easy punching bag, but he's also incredibly electorally vulnerable. His current approval rating is 34% in South Carolina. That's 10 points lower than Donald Trump's. And as you said, he's been in the US Senate for 22 years, which is half of my lifetime. And we have watched him evolve, or more specifically devolve, over that time period. He's changed his position on every issue. The only thing he stands for is himself. And so yes, this is gonna be a non-traditional campaign because we can't play with the old playbook anymore if we want to start winning races all over this country, including in South Carolina.
Yeah, I agree with you that he is definitely an easy punching bag from our side, from Donald Trump. Pretty much everybody loves to attack Lindsey Graham. If he's popular in any way, he's popular in that particular way. And so we're definitely gonna talk more about Lindsey Graham and how he would run against him. Obviously, you know, there's a Democratic primary. So talk to me a little bit about that. What are some issues that you want to focus on, and how does the environment that's looking like it's shaping up for the midterms in terms of, you know, what's going on in the country? We see the protests and everything. How is that perhaps shaping how you differentiate yourself from other Democrats?
Yes, this is going to be an incredibly unique election cycle. I think we're going to see huge backlash to this chaotic Trump administration, and Lindsey Graham has tied himself to everything Trump has done, more so than really, I think, any Republican senator. So the issues I'm going to be focused on, again, as a physician who's been working in children's hospitals for nearly 2 decades, I'm going to talk a lot about healthcare. We are seeing a coordinated attack on our nation's healthcare system, whether it's gutting Medicaid, which is our nation's largest insurer for children, or cutting Medicare, or slashing NIH funds, or elevating a grifter and conspiracy theorist to lead our Department of Health and Human Services. This is a coordinated attack, and I can't stay on the sidelines and watch this happen, because it's going to take us decades for our healthcare system and our public health infrastructure to recover from the damage the Trump administration has already done. I'm also going to be talking a lot about costs, because we continue to see prices spiral out of control, and career corrupt politicians like Lindsey Graham are more than willing to just allow this to continue to happen so they can please their billionaire donors, corporate interest groups. And, you know, I'm going to be talking a lot about the corruption, which is the root of all of this. It's not like Lindsey Graham or Donald Trump actually has a personal opinion about whether we should have a fully funded Medicaid program in this country. They just see it as a line item that they can cross off so that they can deliver tax cuts to billionaires. And I believe in South Carolina, the people in South Carolina that I've served for nearly 2 decades as a pediatrician, and I believe I am the best positioned Democrat to represent the state of South Carolina on the ballot in November 2026. To finally send Lindsey Graham home.
So, Dr. Andrews, I want to ask you. I covered Lindsey Graham's last race in South Carolina. I was on the road with him for a couple of days, and with Jamie Harrison a little longer. And Jamie Harrison was an impressive candidate. His fundraising is not just South Carolina historical, nationally historical, and he couldn't get within 10 points of Lindsey Graham, even with all that money, even with the fact that he had an obvious appeal to African American voters. And these are the kind of voters that have to come out in Charleston County and Dillon County and parts of the state, Clarendon County, parts of the state that you need Democrats to come out. What is it about your candidacy, do you think, that can make it different than what Jamie Harrison did at the ballot box, if not, in terms of fundraising?
Yeah, I mean, Jamie Harrison is a friend. I'm proud to have his official endorsement in this race. He sees me as the candidate that is best positioned to defeat Lindsey Graham. I think 2026 is just a really different election cycle than 2020. Most importantly, we're in a midterm election cycle. As I said, Lindsey Graham's approval rating is 10 points lower than Donald Trump's. Lindsey had Trump on the ballot to save him in 2020.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
He doesn't have that in 2026. And if we don't take this opportunity as Democrats in South Carolina to knock him out in 2026, it will be 2038 before he's on the ballot in another midterm cycle. The other thing that's so different about 2026 compared to 2020 is COVID. Democrats weren't knocking doors in 2020 because of public health concerns. And you really can't win a statewide race as a Democrat in South Carolina without having a really coordinated, well-funded ground game, field operation. So I got in this race 18 months before the general election because I'm confident it's going to take that time to raise the resources we need to run and defeat Lindsey Graham, both with the paid media aspect of a campaign, but also with that coordinated field operation. Now, I've been living in South Carolina for nearly 2 decades. My children are in public schools here. I worked at the Children's Hospital in the Low Country for nearly 15 years. I have deep roots and ties to this community. I've advocated in Columbia, South Carolina for children many, many times. And I believe that I am the candidate that will inspire voters, the base of the Democratic Party, to get out and finally send Lindsey home in November 2026.
I want to ask you, some elections, some midterm cycles have sort of like a narrative, like a thing that they tend to be about. And I was thinking about this when you talked about how you want to focus on healthcare. There have been past cycles when Democrats did talk a lot about healthcare. I feel like I haven't really heard that in some time. And we all know that Donald Trump is already wildly unpopular. By the midterms, he'll be even more wildly unpopular. And there's this big national conversation going on about what Democrats and Democrat leadership should be doing right now. Some people are saying, stick your head in the sand, don't do anything. Some are saying you should stand up and fight. Do you, as a candidate in your state focused race, is that something that you're particularly concerned about? Do you think that it's important that there is sort of an overarching narrative that the Democrats nail it at the national level? Or are you right now you're focusing on your race and not particularly concerned about that?
Before I was a candidate in this race, I was watching as the Democratic Party responded to the devastating loss in the 2024 election. And I was dismayed, like so many other people, that we seemed so lost. And we need to find our way if we're going to start actually winning elections so that we can start delivering for the American people. One of the reasons I decided to run is because I feel like I'm the kind of candidate who can help the party find its way back to our base, to where we come from, to what we fight for. We can't just talk about we're anti-Trump, we're anti-Lindsey Graham. We have to tell voters what we will fight for. And one of the issues that touches every single voter is healthcare. Whether you have a child with a chronic illness, whether you have an unexpected emergency surgery, or you get in a car accident and you have to go to the trauma center, healthcare touches everyone. And I know that the Democratic Party has the policies that will lower healthcare costs, whether it's prescription drug costs or making primary care affordable and accessible for everyone in this country. We just have to be confident in our messaging, and we have to meet people where they are. We have the right policy solutions. We just don't know how to talk to people like regular people. So I see myself as a very different kind of candidate. I didn't come out of some think tank in Washington, D.C. I try to ignore my consultants as often as I can and stay true to who I am and the reasons that I'm running.
So really fast, Michael, just to follow up on that particular issue. So you talked about costs and things like that, and I definitely agree with that. And you talked about wanting to protect Medicaid, but is it time for Democrats, which previously at least some had, to start talking about like an expansion of something, like a public option, like about universal health care, like a big ticket policy to organize a campaign or a cycle around? What is your stance on those sorts of approaches?
Yes, yes, and yes. And one of the issues I hope to have a lot of time to talk about, because again, we need to start like thinking forward instead of playing defense all the time. We have to start talking about what what could be possible if we start winning elections. What about a federalized healthcare program for children? We insure Americans over the age of 65 with a Medicare program, which I am fully in support of. We should have a public option for those who want it. But what if we provided affordable health care to every American under the age of 18? Then we would have a healthier workforce that could contribute to our tax base, and their health care would be less expensive while they're in the workforce and when they're retired. We just need to start thinking about things differently. We need to open our minds to what is possible if we get out of this defensive posture. And if you start talking about these things that would truly change people's lives, they're going to start listening in a way that they haven't listened to politicians in the past.
Sorry, Michael, I cut you off earlier. Feel free.
Yeah, no, you didn't cut me off at all. We'll talk about it later. The whole idea of running for Senate against Lindsey Graham and listening to what you were just saying, I think that John and I and a lot of people who watch this show would agree that, don't lose sight of making this about Lindsey Graham either. I mean, there is something to be said for, doing all these positive things and having the change and everything, but there's some elections that are about the opponent too. And he's a prime candidate for that. And so I wonder how that balance is struck. And then I also want to ask, and the reality is it doesn't make it impossible, but a Democrat has not won statewide, and I may be wrong, in South Carolina since 2006. And I've gone down there and covered some pretty optimistic candidates. Jim Clyburn's the only statewide Democrat in Washington. What is it about you? And I see the optimism and I see the seriousness and I also see the humor, which I love. But what is it about you that thinks that you can break that cycle? And what are you going to employ to do that?
So I feel like I'm in this sweet spot where I'm running against a national villain who should be blamed for everything that is coming out of this chaotic Trump administration. Lindsey Graham is a national villain, which will bring national eyes and national donors interested in my campaign. But at the same time, I've also become a national figure as a child advocate, as a gun violence prevention advocate, as a vocal person on social media. So we really have the best of both worlds. I have an existing national platform and I'm running against a national villain. So I'm confident we can raise the resources and get the eyes on this race that we need to run as competitively as we can. You're right, Democrats haven't won statewide in a very, very long time in South Carolina, but they have in North Carolina and they have in Georgia. And there's no reason that South Carolina should be left out of that story. But if we fail to put a competitive, compelling candidate in this race in the general election in 2026, when Lindsey Graham is as vulnerable as he's gonna be, then we might as well close up shop as a state Democratic Party. This is our opportunity to reset. If I fundraised in the way that I think that I'm able to, I plan to invest some of the money I raise into continuing to build the state party after the 2026 election cycle, because I'm invested in the future of South Carolina. Because like I said, I have 3 kids who are in the public school system here. I love this state, I love my community, and this is far more than about me in 2026 and Lindsey Graham. This is about resetting what the Democratic Party stands for in South Carolina for election cycles in the future.
John, I just want to say this is your chance too, before the end of the interview, to ask a pediatric question. John has a toddler, so one free question I'm sure she'll take.
Right.
She's doing pretty well so far.
Good. All right.
They're coming in, and no, I don't really have anything specific, but thank you. I do want to ask you a somewhat tangential question to end things. The most important thing is your race against Lindsey Graham. But you were talking about villains, and he's the national villain. I want to talk about a henchman for the villains. You did previously challenge Nancy Mace. What are you thinking of Nancy Mace these days? She's been a busy little person the last year or so. What do you make of her?
She sure has. I'm hoping one of the downstream effects of me running for the Senate against Lindsey Graham is people will stop associating me with Nancy Mace, because she is arguably the country's most embarrassing congresswoman. Some people have credited me and my race against her with breaking her brain. I don't necessarily want to take credit for that, but I do know with absolute certainty I live rent-free in her head. And I think one of the reasons I came out of the gates punching so hard this time is because I spent 12 months of my life running against that woman. And she is an embarrassment to the low country of South Carolina. We certainly deserve better. I am fearful that she will be their candidate for the governor's race in 2026. She's not a serious person. She only cares about herself. And the behavior I see out of her is deeply concerning.
Do you know how low the bar is to be more embarrassing than Mark Sanford? I mean, when you think about it, she figured it out.
She sure did.
Yeah, I don't know if it was you, but her brain is all the way broken. There's something seriously wrong with that woman. And it's gonna be hard to run for governor if you can't get people to work for you on your campaign or in the office. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Lindsey Graham's the important thing. So, best of luck in your race. Where can people find out more about your campaign?
Thank you so much. Yes, they need to go to drannieandrews.com to learn more about my candidacy, sign up to be on our volunteer list, make a donation. You don't have to be a South Carolinian to invest in this race, and imagine how great it will feel on election night if a Democrat wins statewide in South Carolina and sends Lindsey Graham home.
Agreed. Dr. Andrews, thank you so much. We appreciate you taking time out to join us.
Thank you.